Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Daniel Hime if you're meeting me for the first time. And today we'll be talking about the recently announced Canon C50 and all the things in the Cinema EOS lineup, the Canon lineup. I do not have the camera physically, but let's discuss a bunch of the implication and some of the wide tech spec sheets and what this might actually mean for the roadmap and following and also observing what are the patterns that begin to emerge among manufacturers. So the C50 was announced a couple of weeks back with 7K RAW that has a 32 megapixels. It has C-Log too. Now that's interesting because the R5C that was around did not have C-Log 2 despite even having the 8K RAW feature, but this comes with 1K less, which is like 7K. The small profile mirrors the new form factors that every manufacturer has been going to, because if you remember, there was a revolution in 2015 when the Canon 5D Mark II came out, and it sparked the whole video revolution that gave people the ability to be able to record video. After a while, we moved away from that and started going to bigger cameras when the Alexas became very bigger, and we had like other cameras following that trend. But if you notice the trend, we're all returning to smaller as the chips get smaller and faster and get aided with artificial intelligence and all small techs and nanometer and circuitry inventions that have made things to be more compact and smaller and smaller and smaller. And now you can now afford to say we have a 7K inside that very small form factor body that shoots RAW and that shoots C-Log 2, and also has like the photo side if you're into doing pictures for your recce, for the 32 megapixels capacity of the sensor to actually like take some of those pictures. The top handle has like the XLR units, which is great for taking direct audios, and you also have like about 14 customizable buttons with subject detections, and which is like an assisted feature from machine learning, what you may call artificial intelligence, to detect humans, faces, animals, birds, depending on the demographic you find yourself. And also the dual ISO feature, and also a dual menu system. The dual ISO speaks to the fact that the camera has two separate circuitry that allows you to capture the signal and process it at a lower gain structure that would give you a cleaner image, and also a higher gain processing, which would be at the higher ISO, which is why it's now like a dual native ISO that is different from the BSI sensor that's available on the C400 that actually does a triple base ISO. I believe that may also speak to like 3 different circuitries, because you have the triple base that's actually in the camera. One of the biggest function that is being touted is Canon has been very less open to the conversation of Anamorphic, but this time they've released the whole open gate that includes everyone that wants to shoot Anamorphic, from there's a 1.3, there's a 1.5, there's a 1.8, and there's a 2x, to be able to come into that vein. And this also, by extension of firmware, will come to the C400, which will bring that recording crop mode that allows you to have access to the 2x disc squeeze that will give you the cinematic aspect ratio of 239 when you shoot on Anamorphic. And also there are also other sub disc squeeze measures. So this is also present in the C50 and also present in the C400, right? I think it might make its way over time to the C80. I do not know if it will come to the C500 and all older cameras, but maybe that may happen there and like way much later. We have several codecs like we did when we had the C400. This time we have the RAW LT, the RAW ST, which is the standard RAW, and we also have like the RAW HQ, right? So for those 3 modes, you have access to also the XAVC and also the H.265 recording mode. So there's like a bunch and a plethora. It's like crammed up with so much codec format that you're spoiled for choices depending on what you're shooting. So if you're on the docu that requires a long format, you can go to the long up, but if you have like the SD card and the medium, you can actually go into the raw light, and it has a dual CF, not a dual CF actually, it has an SD card and a CF Express card, so a dual card slot, which you could use for several things. Some you could do the proxy raw workflow, you could do the duplication of the workflow if you have like the cards. I'm not sure if the SD card will be able to record raw, except it's like, I don't know yet, because they did cure the overheating function that was like one of the weak points of the R5C, and gave it C-Log 2 that is missing in the R5C. Now this is interesting because we can now see most industry giants not just neglecting the bottom of the pyramid, because we are now in an era, we've left the era whereby everything was supposed to cater to the most premium movie makers on the high end that we do no longer neglect the entry. So that said, we are now in a place whereby cameras are now going smaller. And if you watch the trend from every known manufacturer, apart from a very few, those that are not in that place, quote unquote, the ARRI likes, they are the ones that are, like you recently said in rumors, ARRI is vying for a bit of selling up their business because there's not much people at the top of the pyramid. But those who cater to the bottom, where we have the creators, and the middle where we have like the independent, the indies and the docus, there's still a lot of much demographic that this camera would definitely appeal to. So for those that are trying to enter into the cinema lineup of Canon's ecosystem, where we have the C500 Mark II as the pinnacle of what they have as the top of the line, and now we have the C50, just 1 0 away from the C500, but with most of the capabilities of the C500, which is you have the RAW capability, you have the full frame sensor. In some ways, it supersedes the C500 because you also have the RAW ISO. I mean, you have the full frame and also the RAW functions and C-Log 2, but now crammed in a smaller body. Now, where this makes sense is in a multicam workflow, you can have the C50 in places such as crash cams, and you know that you're actually getting raw files out of the file with very high quality. So if you're doing like a car shoot, you may not be able to take that heavy load of the full build of the A camera. These cameras can come into like those tight spaces that can be held easily by a suction cup because the camera is less. And if you pair that with, like I said, if you're a documentary filmmaker, if you pair that with like the 24-105, if you've not seen the review we made on that, you could go check out my other video here, where you have like 5 lenses in one. It comes a very vast reactive piece of equipment that allows you to respond. You could choose a bunch of focal lengths on the fly, and being that it's RF, using the Autofocus and the RF technology that has that communication back and front to be able to get smooth autofocus and dial in subject detection while you're rolling in RAW, that would free you up if you're a one-man band to like do your whole gimbal flex, or if you are actually in a small compact place whereby size and what you can carry for a long time is actually meaningful to you, that becomes like another setup that you could actually use them for, because they have like several multiple formats. If you watch, the C70 sits in the middle bracket for the size. It used to be the smallest after the C500 or C300 Mark III. Right now we have the C70, and now we have the C50, which is even smaller than C70. So readability and the amount of support or the cost of support equipment you would need to be able to get this camera in the places are a lot more cheaper, because the bigger the camera, the bigger the more expensive the GB you would require, the more, because there's weight, there's compact, there's form factor, there's a lot that plays in there. But now the cameras are getting smaller, which means you could use cheaper stabilizers, you could use other cheaper suction rigs that would actually help the camera be safely put in such positions that would actually allow you to get fluency and interpretation of your entire vision, whatever scenarios you're caught up in. So it now brings the question how relevant it is to us in our demographic. Well, there's a lot of I don't have enough money to be able to like stay at the high end. There's a lot of content creation, meaning that you respond to or react to your environment and create asset when you want to do. And there's a lot of creators that lives in the wedding spectrum and the documentary spectrum of staying small and nimble and not aligned, like the camera become all of that. Those demographics are a lot of people. They're occupied by a lot of creatives there, and this camera virtually speaks to those kind of needs. You get the people who are even the owners of C70s and all of that, being able to have access to the Canon RAW feature, open gate, being able to shoot more anamorphic content. There are like several amazing anamorphic glasses out there, from the most expensive to the new cheaper ones that are actually coming out. All of these are suitable solutions for the C50 to be able to get in on that demographic, be able to get in on that share of market in terms of creatives that exist in the pyramid. And this makes it a lot more easier to actually jump into the ecosystem and grow as your needs require, rather than being forced to actually jump to the top tier or future proofing or future buying, because with the progression of technology, we get more smaller and smaller chips. There's a tendency to say even the greatest of the cameras that may actually present themselves in the future may not be as heavy, may not be as bulky, may not be as expensive as it's always available. So that's my own present thoughts on what the C50 is, and how through firmware updates, some of this DNA may extend across some of the older cinema lineups in the EOS range for the camera. So let me know your thoughts and what you think. Is the C50 right for you? Is this something you would find useful in your workflow. If you made it up to this point, please give our video a thumbs up. We're a very small channel. Our goal is to probably get to the first threshold of 10K. So please hit the like button so the algorithm shares the video with a lot of people who would need this insight and in-depth a review. When I have my hands on the camera, when Canon does send it over, or I have my hands on the camera somehow, we can now do a lot more fun physical things that we'll be able to try. Until next time when I see you, improvise, adapt, and overcome.